The Big Lebowski is messing with you. It initially presents itself as a mysterious, twisty crime thriller, but it's actually something else, and the question is, how long does it take for you to be in on the joke? The answer might just be the reason The Big Lebowski is a sleeper hit. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. The Coen brothers had just come off the success of Fargo, which was well received, even earning them an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. As with all Coen brother movies, Fargo was offbeat, but at its core, it was still a crime film.
I'd be very surprised if our suspect was from Brainerd.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, from his footprint, he looks like a big fella.
You watch a detective unravel a deadly case coming up against ransom, kidnapping, and worse. So when The Big Lebowski was marketed as a kind of tonal follow-up to Fargo, audiences may have had certain expectations. Especially because The Big Lebowski seems like it could go down a similar route as Fargo, until it doesn't. So what kind of story is The Big Lebowski? It's a yarn. Like that old phrase, to spin a yarn. A yarn is a kind of story that meanders, but in an enjoyable way. Its elements might be a little far-fetched, but that's the fun of it, because with this kind of story, the end result isn't really the point. When a kid unravels a ball of yarn, they don't do it to reach the end of the string. They do it because it's fun to unravel the ball of yarn. The point of this story is in the telling of it. The Big Lebowski is less concerned with the grand scheme and instead makes every individual scene as interesting as possible. And it does this by placing its story in a specific context. Los Angeles in the early 90s. That setting is important because the ball of yarn we're unraveling here is a caricature of that specific place at that specific time. Our characters represent some of the worldviews and cultural standpoints at the time. The Coen brothers based most of these characters off people they knew or had closely observed. The story starts when two men suddenly burst into the apartment of our main character, the dude.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
They interrogate him, confusing him with a wealthy businessman by the same name, Jeffrey Lebowski.
You got the wrong guy. I'm the dude, man.
Woo?
Yeah.
Isn't this guy supposed to be a millionaire?
They pee on his rug and leave. So the dude seeks restitution from the other Lebowski for his rug because
This rug I have, it really tied the room together.
the dude can be seen as a representation of counterculture at the time. We'd just come out of Reagan's presidency, so Reaganomics are in full swing when people are focused on the idea of being a self-made success. Anyone can be an entrepreneur if they just work hard enough. Then you have this guy who walks around in a bathrobe on weekdays and scoffs at the concept of being employed.
Are you employed, sir?
Employed?
Despite the fact that the story is constantly escalated, the dude's goal never really changes. He just wants to replace his rug so he can get back to bowling. The one who's often doing the escalating would be the dude's friend, Walter. America had been done with the Vietnam War for almost 20 years by the early 90s, but through Walter, we get a depiction of the impact it had on a generation of military men.
Over the line!
Huh?
I'm sorry, Smokey. You were over the line. That's a foul.
Work at 8, dude.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
As a Vietnam vet, Walter defines his worldview by that experience, but his internal logic is rarely consistent. For instance, he claims to care about law and order, but won't hesitate to blow up any situation with aggressive chaos.
It's time for plan B.
You might want to watch out that front window, Larry.
You see what happens, Larry? This is what happens, Larry.
He believes he's the smartest guy in the room in every scenario and seeks to control situations. He usually ends up being wrong, but the dude just goes along with it because the dude abides. And these are just two examples. You've got Maude, Lebowski and Brandt, Donnie, Jackie Treehorn, even some German nihilists that all come in and out of the story to represent certain cultural aspects of that time and place. There's a scene where Walter throws a fit while eating in a diner.
If you don't calm down, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Lady, I got buddies who died face down in the muck so that you and I can enjoy this family restaurant.
All right, I'm out of here.
And what I noticed this time was all the people in the background. They're not approaching Walter, they're not calling the police, they're just mildly annoyed. And I realized after living in LA for 7 years now that I have been those people. I've been in a public place, someone is having a bit of a moment, like Walter does here, and you just sort of wonder, what's going on with that guy? And this whole movie is as if the filmmaker said, we'll show you exactly what's going on with that guy. So how come this didn't really work when the movie was first released? It did so-so at the box office and critics were largely unimpressed. I personally believe it goes back to what I said earlier, that the movie is teasing the audience a bit. I mentioned before how the movie's plot begins when two henchmen break into the dude's home. They rough him up, interrogate him about money. It's the perfect inciting incident for a crime thriller. But later in the movie, when the same inciting incident has happened 3 more times, it might start to become clear that the mystery itself isn't really the point. The movie is riffing on those kinds of plot points. And I honestly think that the movie wants you to be in on the joke, but sometimes it takes multiple watches to get that because we go in so prepared for something else. I think audiences kept waiting for their expected crime mystery to play out, and it never really did, so they just weren't sure what to make of it. But if you watch this movie a second time, already knowing what it's not, it allows you to really enjoy what the movie actually is. And honestly, I think this might be par for the course with the Coen brothers. They have made some of Hollywood's most interesting movies, but they refuse to do any kind of standard storytelling. They've crossed tones tones and genres, but ultimately they stick to what they want to do with a story, which often becomes something you have to experience multiple times to really grasp. With The Big Lebowski, some people were in on the joke immediately, and that's why it soon became a cult classic, a movie with a niche group of passionate fans. But their dedication to the movie continued to encourage others to reassess it, allowing it to grow to a full-on sleeper hit, where now most people would recognize iconic lines like,
You know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
"That's just like your opinion, man."
Say it like how he would.
That's how he says it! Yeah. And next week we'll be discussing another movie that's become iconic over time, but we're switching genres for horror classic, The Thing. The Thing is considered one of the best horror movies of all time, but upon release, it was so reviled, it nearly ended John Carpenter's career. He had been hired to direct the adaptation of Stephen King's Firestarter, but was dropped from the movie. Universal had him contracted for several more films, but bought out the remainder of that contract. Today, the movie is revered for its incredible practical creature effects, its unique soundtrack, and its unrelenting dilemma, but no other movie in our lineup this month received so much hate at the time of its release, only to become a classic decades later. We'll be examining why next week, but here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. What do you think of the creature effects? Do they still frighten you, or have they aged enough to lessen their intensity? Do you think this has contributed to the movie's popularity growing over time? Critics often called the movie bleak and nihilistic. What do you think? Does that description resonate with you? 3 different endings were filmed. How do you feel about this one? Do you think ambiguity is a good storytelling tactic? So let me know about your experience with The Big Lebowski. Did you vibe with it right away? Were you confused by its tone? Have you come to enjoy it after multiple watches? Or do you have an entirely different take on it? Let's chat about it. And I'll see you back here next week for The Thing. If you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.